The future is watching. Welcome to Opcode Virtual Summit.
This is going to be about CrimeOps. It's the operational art of cybercrime. So basically, this is going to be covering Fin7. They have been operating for like 5 or 6 years. They're currently being dismantled, like the executive suite is being cleared out. And this is interesting because in the process of doing that, the indictments that have been released for the like the head management have included a lot of the operational details of how they managed their team, which is something that is very rarely visible to an external researcher. Typically, the internal management of a group is very, very opaque. So here is a wonderful opportunity to actually see how a highly successful, by the metric of getting money by crime, how a highly successful group ran their operations. So we'll be just covering slightly sort of about business. Then we'll look at Fin7 using several analytical frameworks, which we'll introduce during the business section. In particular, it's the people, process, technology triangle. Then I will discuss the operational art as they've actually developed it, and then we'll have a lessons learned. So you can take away the key insights for running your own cybercrime group. So the first thing to start out with is like Fin7 is super lame. If you're interested in a really cool, exciting, like cutting edge group that does really awesome stuff, like Fin7 is not your group. They are boring as fuck, right? So their tools, techniques, and procedures are like straight up generic. So, you know, they use spear phishing, then they use malicious documents, then they use a derivative generic malware. Then, so like they gain access with spear phishing, which, you know, so does everyone else. They get execution with a malicious attachment, which, you know, so does everyone else. They hang around using generic malware. Like, to be fair, theirs was quite good for the era, but, you know, it wasn't a custom bottom-up super cool implant. It was just malware that anyone had. The way that they do their collection is like sniffing the wire. At some point they had point of sales implants, and they do network and system reconnaissance. They just look around for stuff. And then the way that they exploit their victims, that is the way that they actually gain value from that attack, is wire transfers using their financial information, or they sell data that they steal. So they'll steal financial data such as credit cards, debit cards, and they will sell that. So, you know, stop me if you've heard this one before. Like, this is as cookie cutter, straightforward, like bread and butter, meat and potatoes. This is not very exciting stuff. This is a very, very boring group, which is why they are amazingly fucking innovative, right? So what's fascinating is that having that very, very top 10 OWASP set of procedures for gaining access is what allows them to innovate at a more interesting level that generates much more revenue for them and allows them to be more successful. So the important thing is, like, they're not technically innovative, right? They're not pushing the envelope. They're not really doing anything super exciting, right? If you wanted to, you could spend an afternoon on GitHub and you could have the exact same capability as Fin7 from top to bottom, right? Like you can download your way to parity with Fin7. They're not really that exciting. Also, they are not strategically innovative, right? They basically hit the same stuff that everyone else does. They monetize in the same way, right? Like they're stealing credit card data, they're doing wire transfers, they're not doing anything special. So that leaves only one arena where they can do innovation, and that's at the operational level. And this is fascinating because operational innovation is actually one of the hardest and rarest types of innovation to see in a group, particularly one that isn't, they don't have business consultants helping them out. So that's sort of like the high level overview about Fin7. I'm not actually going to spend a lot of time talking about details on them because it doesn't actually matter for what we're going to be looking at. What we're going to be looking at is business, right? Because cybercrime is a business and business is good. And when we discuss businesses, we need to have at least one analytical framework that we're going to use to analyze the target so that we know what we're talking about. So in this case, I'm going to use essentially a primary analytical framework and a overarching set of levels. So we've got like the strategic, the operational, and the tactical. At the strategic level, this is how you implement policy, right? So if your policy is, we will do cyber crimes, then your strategic level stuff is, how are we going to do cyber crimes? If there was a grand strategic level, it would be, should I do cyber crimes or should I do something else? Right? Like that would be you would define your policy higher up. Once you've got your policy, then you figure out how you're going to implement that and what objectives you have to ensure that you're executing well. Then operational is basically how you go about actually accomplishing those things. And that's in terms of managing the tactical actions sort of underneath. So your tactical stuff will be grouped together into like operations, right? Just bundles of tactical actions. And then operational is the level where you manage all of that. You've got like the resources, the ways that you get one operation to support another, which people you assign to which thing. So strategic, operational, and then tactical, which is the actual like nitty-gritty of how you go about committing your cyber crimes. So in terms of an independent researcher, separate research thing, typically tactical innovation, not only is it relatively fast, it's relatively fast to discover, because when people start doing something like technically new and innovative, as soon as it gets discovered, bang, that's it. You've found tactical innovation. You found like this new thing that they're doing. Strategic innovation, that tends to be a little bit slower, but it can be discovered sort of over time with new trends that start showing up and sort of longer, more in-depth research to see what people are now doing instead. The thing is, operational innovation, it's very, very hard to see, because the only way it shows up is when the tactical game is on point and they're executing well on their strategy. Right? It's opaque if they have good internal processes and excellent technology and people, and they are running an efficient, tight ship. You won't know that, because that's not something that shows up in any forensic artifacts. Right? That's not something that gets left behind and leaves fingerprints. Those are the three levels. Just to give some examples of like what a cybercrime strategy would be stuff like when you have a new monetization method, when you have new ways of doing monetization, this can open up new revenue streams, which is very useful because there tends to be a lot of competitors. And these competitors, if they're using the same monetization methodology that you already use, basically they will, it's something of a tragedy of the commons. Basically, they will eat up all the resources and you will have less money for yourself. So finding new revenue streams is always good. And sometimes a tactical innovation, like a new technical capability, can open up a new market for exploitation or a new method of monetization. For example, ransomware was a strategic move that created new revenue streams. Crypto miners are a strategic move that create new revenue streams. So, like these are the broader strategic things that can happen. But that said, sort of lower down, you have your tactics. So the tactics are basically your malware. As I said, like ransomware, crypto miners, things like that, which create new means of doing monetization. But also, if you have a really good high stealth malware, you can have longer dwell time, which gives you a longer period of exploitation. So you can, make more money from one victim by simply being on that network for longer. And it doesn't need to be technical. It can also be just a pure tactic. So the move to extortion, which ransomware was already extortion. It's it goes and it hides people's data, right? It's going to destroy data, but people actually care more about having their data go out to the public than they care about getting access to their data again. Generally speaking, of course. So if you really did want to make money, you would replace all of your ransomware with threats to publish everything that you can find on the box. So I wrote about that a while ago, and anyway, it's interesting stuff. But it's it's a tactical change, and it allows a business to adjust how it's making money. And then at the operations level, this is the stuff that we don't tend to see, right? So it's just managing the resources and infrastructure, doing support for the infrastructure for exploitation, right? So, making sure that you can still sell your credit card data to people, or making sure that you have access to someone who has money mules. It's really not interesting stuff. And again, it doesn't show up in a postmortem analysis from the outside, because this is not something that is visible unless you have complete and total access to everything. And so it's interesting to see it when it's innovative, and it's hard to see innovation in the wild. Support, management, tracking progress, making sure that things are happening in the right order so you still get your money. And then after something falls apart, you're going to have to do lessons learned, like what went wrong. Then once you say like what went wrong, then you try and integrate that into your understanding of the world. So you do sense making, and with that, you sort of update your assumptions and you add new knowledge. And then the next time you have an operation, it will be better, right? That's the theory anyway. So this is operation stuff, but it's also not something that you will see unless you have amazing access. And it's not something where innovation is obvious. So what's cool is because we do have this access to Fin7's internal operational management and how they ran their business, we can see how the fuck they innovated, and it's really cool. And in order to look at that, what we're going to need to do is talk about business analysis and the PPT framework. So people, process, technology. It's sometimes shown as Venn diagram. Typically it's shown as a triangle, but I couldn't find one to steal on the internet that was high enough resolution. So you get to see the Venn diagram. But the important thing is just to know that these three components sort of interact, and they are what enable your business to improve and to execute on your strategy. So people is basically, you need to have the right people following a process that works, and then technology is used to make that process more efficient and to optimize the workflow of those people. So the idea is sort of like if you look at a business, you can look at who they have and how those people are structured and managed. You can look at what they do, and you can look at sort of how they do it, and then what technology they use to enable that. And that can tell you sort of like what needs to be improved, or how this particular thing operates and functions. So with Fin7, just a brief run through of what they have. They have multiple job roles. Each job role has its own set of responsibilities and areas of concern. They basically have an executive suite. They've got these managers. These are the guys making the big money. Well, actually, the mobsters that they paid off probably make more money. But anyway, so you've got your executive suite who sort of run and manage things. Then some of them are sort of on the cusp. They're support. So they help the managers and make sure that things work smoothly for the frontline workers. And then, they have frontline workers. And the frontline workers are the people that we tend to think of when we think of cyber criminals, which is, like the hackers and the malware writers and stuff like that. Then, okay, so Fin7 has got this process, and the process is pretty good. It's this OWASP top 10. It's this cookie cutter thing that we went through. Basically, you feed a company in, and you run your process, and at the other side, money comes out, right? That's what you want. You want a process that just works. And that's almost anyone, or at least people that you can hire, can follow and execute, because at some point you're going to have to, grow and expand so that you can make more money. So they have this process which allowed them to make money from basically any victim that they targeted. They also use DevOps because their developers were also running a lot of the infrastructure and were directly interfacing with the operators who were doing the hacking. So they would be able to update and give them like new tools and add functionality and things like that as operations were going on. And interestingly, they basically used Agile. I don't believe that they had daily stand-ups, or they had a Kanban, or they did user stories. I'm a bunch of credit card data and I want to be stolen. Now, I don't think that they did that part of the Agile process, but what they did do is very, very rapid iterations of very small feature sets. So they would not do this like, oh, we're releasing an entirely new strain of malware. They're just, bump it by a 0.001 version release. So something that worked, they stuck with it, and they just did incremental improvements as they went along. And then in terms of the technology that they used, they basically just used Jira, which they used for project management, and their projects were businesses that were going through the process. They had a fair amount of coordination, collaboration. So they like had Hipmunk, which I bet I've misspelled. They had an encrypted Jabber, which they used for sensitive content. One of the things that came out in the affidavit was that the encrypted Jabber, like they got logs, the FBI got logs of that, and the FBI tries to sort of like make fun of it a bit, saying, you know, like these guys shared their like real names and bank information and ha ha ha. And here's the thing. There's very, very few ways of actually moving cash money from place to place. And the easiest way inside of a country tends to be via like bank to bank or something like that. It's a very, very straightforward way of doing things. And like, I'm not at all surprised that they just defaulted to something that works and is simple. And, you know, if you're a developer and you're waiting for your salary, you want to just go straight into your bank and know that it shows up. You don't want the guy saying, oh yeah, the check's in the mail, right? You don't want to be dicked around. So Jira, Hipmunk, encrypted XMPP, and email, because there's no way anyone can escape from email, even if you do cybercrime. Okay, so that's a rough overview. We're going to go to a bit more detail because the details are important in this case. So now we're going to do the people, process, technology in detail. So people. The team roles that they had are, as I said, there's an executive suite, sort of this management level that they handle like the big high level stuff and make sure that the operations are working. And this is the area where the innovation happened. So this is actually the cool stuff. The managers are the heroes of the story, right? Then there are the operators who just hack stuff, and they are not actually that interesting because what they're doing is a straightforward, simple process, and it's literally OWASP top 10. It's dull. What is slightly interesting is that they also had interpreters involved, and my understanding is that they would use the interpreters to allow them to target, non-English, non-Russian, whatever, victim companies, so that they would have people who could do, they'd be able to do their emails for their recruitments, and they'd be able to read what's going on when they get into the network and on the systems, and they'll be able to do their OSINT when they're doing their spotting and assessing and stuff. So one of the things I'll bring up right now, because I don't have another good place to put it, when they were doing capacity building and they were building out their team by adding headcount and hiring in new people, they were bringing in operators on false pretenses. So Fin7 had apparently more than one, but they had a fake security company, and they would get people to apply to become penetration testers. Then they would take them, they would interview them, and then if they passed, they would give them jobs doing cybercrime. And see, I don't buy that these guys, like these pen testers, didn't know what was going on. Like, they had to know 100% what was going on. And I'll tell you why. There is no way that they thought that these operations were pen tests, because in a pen test, you write a report. No report, there's no fucking way this is legitimate. Any way that you get out of writing a report is almost guaranteed to be criminal. So I'm sure these guys knew what was going on. Like, it's not the sort of thing that you can just easily ignore. So I put together, very painstakingly, because I'm a horrible artist, I put together an org chart to show you sort of how Fin7 is structured, because again, this matters. It's important to realize that, like, the core members of the group, the people that are making the real money, that are doing the innovative stuff, that are actually critical for the organization to continue functioning, that's management and the support guys. Who, I think there was 2 managers and 1 support, maybe 3 managers and 1 support. So it's not a huge org chart. It's not a massive group at the top. It's a lot bigger at the bottom. But at the bottom, they are literally interchangeable. They don't matter. All they need to do is execute the process that's already been refined and made to work. And then the management team can exploit whatever these guys get access to and actually make money. So, like, the point of a cybercrime business, a cybercrime group, is to make money, right? And just like any group or any organization, they basically have a remit to continue to exist. So they're going to strive for survival, and they're going to strive to make money. And then after that, anything else is, ideology from the management. But these guys, all they want to do is they want to make money. This is not, politically motivated. It's they want cash. So if we look at the C-suite, like these executives, they have very, very clear, defined responsibilities, right? The most important thing is the money, right? They're in charge of the finances. They're in charge of paying people's salary. They're in charge of hiring and firing. And they're in charge of taking the data or taking the wire transfer stuff and cashing it out. So these guys own the money. That gives them control over everything else. That's where the power is. The next thing that they do is project management. So they assign tasks to personnel. They put people on projects. They control the allocation of resources so that infrastructure, whatever, goes to the right places. Like, that's fundamentally their most important hands-on part of the business in terms of hacking, is focusing on making sure that the people who are doing the hacking have the support they need and the information they need to do their jobs and hack. And then the other thing that they're responsible for is business growth. So, they do, as I said, the hiring, the salaries. They also have to support the infrastructure and the technology stack, which enables their project management and resource management. And I'm not sure on this because I haven't seen how they selected their targets, whether that was left up to the developers, sort of like the frontline workers, or whether that was done by the C-suite guys at the executive level. I don't know. My suspicion is that everyone did it. Like, they were all in it to make money. So there's no reason that they wouldn't get involved in trying to find new places to hack. Then the support guys, who, again, they're part of management. They're sort of earlier, like first hire, not necessarily founders. And their focus is sort of supporting the technology stack, coordinating personnel, and maintaining the operational infrastructure. So, like, these guys are sort of there to make sure that things are ticking along when the guys who cash out the money aren't there to do that. And also to provide support in the background. The operators, right? So these are the guys who actually do the hacking. Again, they have clear, obvious responsibilities. They're sort of roles that they play, and they get hired to do sort of just this. So the important thing for them is gaining access to a target. That's pretty much all that matters, is gaining access. Access. They need to have persistence, but that is handled basically by the malware, right? It's done by the software. It's not really up to them as long as they don't screw up. So their big thing is doing awesome research. So they do open source intelligence research on the targets that they're going after to find out about people within that company that will be vulnerable to manipulation or can otherwise be recruited. Basically, they have to find out who's working there so they can figure out how to trick those people into doing things for them via email. So their big thing is research, putting up like phishing sites or, fake supporting LinkedIn profiles, all that sort of crap that makes a come on or an approach over email, whatever, more credible. That's it. That's what they do. And then their task is to manipulate people. So primarily they do that over email, but these guys would also use the phone. So they would, send an email and then they would call up and apply pressure to the person and get them to actually, double click on the thing by talking them through it and, hurry, hurry, hurry. And so that's sort of it. Like it's very sophisticated, like psychological manipulation and social engineering, but anyone can do it. It's not actually a massively innovative thing. This is what you should be doing. You can spend months talking to someone over email before you actually send them the malicious document. Then they have to have like network and systems security capabilities and skills. So once they gain access to the network, they need to scan, they need to look around, they need to find out where they have to go to get the information that they need and to get passwords or dump databases, find the POTS network, all this stuff like that. They have to do that. They have to maintain the malware that they've installed, so they need to update it. They need to make sure that it's running sufficiently. And then when they do their collection, that's when they do all their looting, and they have to exfiltrate that data. So basically, the operator, pretty much all they need to do, find someone, exploit that person, exploit access to that network, maintain access to that network, and pull data out of that network, right? It's very hands-on, low-level technical stuff, but it is not interesting because anyone could do it. That's why they were able to just hire people off the street, essentially. People who are dumb enough to fall for a fake security company with misspellings and very garbled, broken English, and then on the website, and then they would have to speak on a hipmunk with a whole bunch of guys who pretty obviously are not a professional pen testing company. And then these guys would be doing operations which in no way look like penetration tests. There's no penetration test that lasts for 6 months and involves maintaining the illusion of being someone else and carrying on an email conversation until finally, at some point, you send a stealth piece of malware via document macros, and then use that to surreptitiously gain access, and you never write up anything about it. Like that very obviously does not happen in the commercial world. So either these guys are dumb as bricks, or they knew what was going on and they were fine with it, which is my guess. So other than the operators, there's two additional roles that existed, which is the developers and the interpreters. The developers were responsible for maintaining the offensive technology stack. So that's the C2 servers, the phishing stuff, and updating and upgrading the malware as it went along. If there's new business objectives that come out and they take priority and they get tasked with it, then they would have to create new features and functionality to support those business objectives. But as far as I know, like Fin7 basically stuck to what it knew. It wasn't really doing new crazy stuff. And then the interpreters basically just provide operational support to the operators. So they do spotting, assessment, and recruitment support. So they find people who work at the target. They figure out if they're going to be good to go after, like what their level of access is and such. Then they help, for example, with crafting the text of the phishing emails, or I suppose they would do the phone calls and stuff like that. But they just provide support at that end. And then this allows the operators to do asset exploitation. And they will also probably provide support at the reconnaissance phase, because once you get into a network and everything is in foreign, it's helpful to have someone who knows that like slang for backup is this word. So let's look at that. And of course, like while these roles are segregated, the people that fill the role might have multiple hats. So, like one of the managers in support could be a developer, or they could be an interpreter, or they could be an operator as well, right? Like these, like they're clearly not strict jobs in terms of who fills them. They are strict jobs in terms of the responsibilities that they have. Which brings me to my next point, which is by 2025, there's a prediction that there'll be a shortage of 20,000 cyber criminals. It's hard to get the help. So that's from Cybercrime Business Weekly, probably. So those are the people. They've got these roles. They've got people that fill them. They hire when they need to. What is the process? Because this is the core of their business. The process is excellence in criming. So they have a process that's adaptable. It's basically a template that they can use to take any company, run it through their process, and get cash money at the other end. That's the goal. Like you take in pretty much any target within one of your existing verticals, and you process it using the same steps that you use for everything, with the same toolkit, and generally the same process, the same methodology, and you get the same output, which you can feed into your monetization pipeline, and you get cash. You probably want to have a lucrative monetization pipeline. So you want to go for something with high return on investment. You also want to have a large, dense victim pool that you can exploit. And this typically is going to show up in verticals such as restaurants or stores. Like if you're going after point of sale systems, you need to go after verticals that have point of sale infrastructure and customers that you can steal from. And generally speaking, once you have a process and you've got a target vertical, strip mining the entire vertical is very, very profitable. Like you don't have to come up with a new innovative strategy and a new set of tactics to go after different targets. You just repeat what you're doing on more targets, and that will make you boatloads of money. So that's sort of like the excellence in criming goal. Next, this is the cybercrime process that Fin7 uses, which pretty much everyone else uses as well. Like it's not, this process is not exceptional. So there's 2 or 3 phases. I've broken it down into 2 because I only know how to make a slide that's got 2 sets of bullet points. If I knew how to do 3, then I would show you 3 phases. So essentially, you've got your pre and post phase, your pre-penetration and post-penetration. So you've got your access, where you do your target selection, you find out who you're going to recruit, you get them via email, and you make them install the malware. Once you have installed malware, boom, you're now into the exploitation phase, right? You already have access, you're inside, you own that company. Now what you need to do is exploit it. You need to turn that company into cash money. So the access phase is the first part of the process, gaining access to a company. And because they use phishing rather than ODay or straightforward exploits and stuff like that, they can target almost any company because they don't need the company to have special technology. They just need the company to have people. So they've got this generic access phase that gains them access. Then they have a generic exploitation phase where they explore the network, they find out what's there, and then they establish this sort of continuous exfiltration. So if they can find business accounts or other bank data, they'll do wire transfers. And if they can get access to financial data such as debit cards or credit cards, then they will sell that data. So I have made a very, very awesome business process. And you can see this is basically what they do. You start at your target selection, you do all of your stuff with your asset where you find out who to go after, you convince them to do stuff for you, and then you make them do stuff for you. That gets you into the network, you have a look around, then you hit basically the only decision step you have the entire time, which is determining how you're going to be exploiting them. So either directly via wire transfer or indirectly via exfiltration of financial data. If you're doing it directly, that's a sort of one-step win process. If you are collecting and selling data, that's got 2 more steps. And then you get the money. So this is where it all pays off. The whole point of this whole thing is you put in anyone at the beginning and you get cash money at the end. And as you might know, you can actually you can patent a business process. And kind of wondering if you can patent a cybercrime process. Okay, so I've got a lot of slides. I'm running out of time. Basically, they just use this very, very reliable, straightforward, functional TTP. It's not flashy, it's not exciting, it's not cool, but it works, and it works everywhere. And that's all that you want, right? You just want social engineering over email, gets you in anywhere. You want a malicious document with an attachment that executes, it'll run on anything. Persistence, you've got generic, reliable malware, installs on anything. And then when you get to exploiting it, you just sniff data, you use POTS implants, or you look around the network for information that's lying around. It's very straightforward, reliable, solid stuff, and it's not exciting, but that's the point. Okay, so they've got people who are in clearly defined roles. The people that they have are a core management team, some early hires, and then a bunch of late hires that just do paid work, salaried work. They have a process which is very, very boring. Spear phishing, install some fucking malware, recon, wire from bank accounts, and steal credit cards. Dollars dishwater. But they made it work, and they made it interesting by doing project management. So because they've got this repeatable process that they can use over and over again, they could have every target be exploited the exact same way, and they could treat every target as a project because it's going through the same process. It's it's simply in progress through the execution of that process. It's not actually special or unique. It's just one of many. And that means that their revenue, like their income, is coupled to the number of active processes that are running at any time. So the more they have, the more money that they're bringing in, which means if they want more money, they need to have more concurrent processes. So in order to maximize their revenue, they need to have more capacity. And that capacity has to enable them to do parallel execution. So they need software that allows them to do this. Bring that up in a minute. So this is going to get us into portfolio management, because what they ended up doing is portfolio management. So this is where you have a number of projects and things that you're doing, and you basically, you prioritize and control them in line with your business strategic objectives, which in this case is make money, and your capacity to deliver. So if you're going after someone and it's not paying off, then you deprioritize them. And the goal is to balance the implementation of change initiatives and the maintenance of business as usual while optimizing return on investment. So you want to improve and optimize, make things better. You want to keep making all the money that you are, and you want to make more money over time. And all of that portfolio management is handled by Jira. Fin7 use Jira for their cybercrime portfolio solution. So your problem is that executing a large number of cybercrime processes in parallel is hard. Right? You've got like hundreds of victims. They have different people that you're going after at each one. You have a number of different people working on a different subset and a different combination of victims at any time. You need to track the information and what you're getting back from specific targets. You need to do management, and you need to manage your projects, and that becomes portfolio management. So what these guys did is they used Jira for their portfolio management and Hipmunk for their collaboration solution. So this is how they were able to run an effective cybercrime business using existing business technology. So onto their business. Their business is crime. Fin7 was basically Uber for cybercrime. So they found a way to make money. They got their process, and then they just made it big. So once they got product market fit, they scaled. I don't think they had hockey stick take up, but that's what they were looking for. So they got a functioning process, and then they added scale, and they were able to do that because they were able to do portfolio management using Jira and Hipmunk to do collaboration and project management. So because they're a business, I thought that it would be appropriate to create a mission statement. So our mission is to proactively leverage existing long-term high-impact growth strategies so that we may endeavor to deliver the kind of results on the bottom line that our investors expect and deserve. That is exactly what Fin7 did. So they actualized their vision. How did they actualize their vision? Glad that you asked. The answer is CrimeOps. They basically had a number of pillars that were like load-bearing for their business, and those were a repeatable business process. The bosses spent their time managing workers, projects, data, and money, not actually doing any frontline stuff. They don't need to deal with technical innovation, so they're not actually tied to any external controls in that sense. Like they're not held up by things that advance outside of their R&D on their own part. None of that actually matters because what they're doing is spear phishing and malware. And then because they're not doing technical innovation, they can just do incremental iterative improvements on their existing TTP, and they just need to remain effective. So basically, like, you have to be this high plus one. Right? That's all they were going for. It's like, as long as they could keep operating, that's good enough. And then the other thing is, because they don't need to do any technical innovation, the frontline people don't need to do any technical innovation either, because everything's repeatable. That means that your pool of potential workers is much bigger. So this is where they came into the operational art of cybercrime. They were able to take this process, operationalize it, and make fuck tons of money. So how do you do that? Well, they grew their gang. They had their repeatable crime process. Then they migrated to portfolio management. So they were no longer running the process themselves. They were managing projects which involved the process. Every target became a project which would have resources, current status, and information associated with it. So they were able to do a more hands-off and allow delegation to a number of people, which meant that they could scale up by simply building capacity and increasing headcount. And then with their portfolio management for their targets, they were then able to do project managements within that to track resources, to check the project status, and they would coordinate their team knowledge base so that everyone working on the project would have the same baseline understanding. So what does that mean? If you have a working process, then the bottleneck goes from exploiting your target to scaling your process, right? Once you've got that process down, you don't need to spend time on executing it. You just need to spend time on executing as many instances of it as you can, which means you need to do process management, right? Every victim's progress through the process has to be managed and monitored so that you can delegate to other people and they can coordinate, maintain a shared knowledge base. They can do collaboration and information sharing, and you can reap the rewards by exploiting their work after they follow the process, which you can do by building capacity, which means you can have more people executing the process. The more people you have executing the process, the more money you get at the end, because you are able to exploit a larger pool of victims simultaneously. So, once you've got your portfolio management in place, boom, build capacity and crank it up. That's it. That's the operational art. That's all there is to it. It's easy. So what have we learned? Well, Fin7 should get an award for cybercrime excellence for innovation and achievements in the operational art of cybercrime. They were able to take management processes and apply them to their unique business, which allowed them to scale up with people that were brought in, and that allowed them to execute their process in parallel over a large number of victims, and that allowed them to make a lot of money. And sort of here are the key takeaways. So when you go back and you need to report to your boss how to make your cybercrime group better, these are the things that you want to be talking about. You basically want to move from technological innovation into business innovation, because the technology is not really going to give you massive improvements. It's going to give you incremental improvements. But if you can streamline your business, and if you can make your business more effective, that's going to have a huge impact on your revenue. The important thing is to have a process, because you want to be able to go after a lot of people using the exact same techniques. You want to have this flexible, straightforward process that doesn't need a lot of work. You can just feed something in and money comes out at the other end. Then you will have portfolio management. You want to be able to manage all of your stuff and all of the projects that are going on. Again, project management. You want to be able to track what's happening when you have a large number of people working on things, which you will have because you can do capacity building. And you can do capacity building if you have clear roles and structured teams so that it's understood what people need to do and who needs to do it, who's working on what, which projects they're on, what the current status is. And again, you can make that faster by using DevOps, which will allow them to directly manage their own stuff rather than having someone else coming in and doing support. And if you use agile processes, you can do rapid iterations and maintain your technical effectiveness, but you don't have to invest heavily in R&D to have new technical innovations. But despite all of this, the number one takeaway: crime pays when you move up the value chain into project management. Questions? Yeah.
I like the Cybercrime Excellence Award is a good idea. Actually, it's better than Pony Awards. If you think about it. It's like I think we should just do it. Like find a way to like send it to all the groups. That you get like some random like pictures on social media with the award. The proof of receiver.
I think instead of a reward, they just got a lot of money. So they're probably doing okay. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely not be definitely not for the money, but just for like as a concept, like for groups. Yeah. So first question, actually, like, so do we know who is behind Fin7?
Yes. Yeah. You can Google it. Like basically, there are like 3 or 4 leaders.
So it's Russia, basically.
Yeah, they're Russians or Ukrainians or English people that call themselves like Dmitry Popov. Yeah, it's
and your smileys with only one parenthesis.
Yeah, right next to the final letter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, like basically, you can read the affidavits, you can read the stuff from Kaspersky. One of the things you'll find if you do start looking into Fin7 is because they're also they use like Carbonac, the malware that at one point was huge and everywhere. You're going to find that there's not actually one Fin7. What there are is a number of people who sort of like come together and split up and do different things, but who all use basically the same TTP, like the same tooling, the same methodologies, the same exploitation strategies, the same monetization. And it's sort of quite hard for external researchers to say, all right, like this is subgroup A rather than subgroup B. So they got lumped together, but you'll see that there's a lot of like different threat intelligence companies will say this set of intrusions was not actually Fin7. It was another group that was using Fin7, TTP. But who really knows?
I mean, there's the thing with attribution. Once the TTPs and the AOCs are out, it's quite easy to make it look like you are another group. And since people are like quite excited about attribution, they're gonna like point the finger to the first group. We think this is those guys.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is you've got a shared piece of malware. You've got a bunch of people who've been using it for years, and they all use spear phishing and a Word document. How do you tell one from the other? They're using the same software and the same technique. Yeah. So and it's likely that some of them, used to work with other guys, and
Yeah.
they learned how to do it from them. So they're, using literally the exact same stuff, just they're not actually that same group. So yeah, like Fin7 for the definition of this is the Fin7 from the FBI's affidavits, because that's where the information on their operational art came from.
Yeah, and if it's actually it's a good. You write a malware, you open source it, a bunch of people use it. It's like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And another question in the chat from Margot. She's asking, are they targeting like only big companies or SMEs or both?
No.
And if they're still active?
They are supposedly still active, but their like executive suite has been cleaned out. I think there's one guy still at large, but of the 4, 3 of them are in jail in the US. So apparently they're still running. And as we were saying earlier, like the people who have the software know how to do this. There's a lot of them. So even if Fin7 itself is no longer operational, then a clone or a variant is definitely still operational. I forgot the question.
If they are targeting only SMEs or multinationals or both.
Right. So basically what they do is they target verticals rather than companies based on size. So from the affidavits, what was listed was stuff from their 2016 to 17 time period. And at that point, they were going after retail stores and restaurants, basically locations which would have point of sale, like POTS devices that would get credit card data and would send it over the network internally, and or could be compromised and would be able to collect like that. So they were going after people who had like a lot of customers coming in. So like restaurants and like shoe stores or anything at a mall. Basically, they just wanted retail stores that had customers that they could steal from. So they weren't, in this case, going after large companies. But sort of the way to think about it is they weren't necessarily going after those small companies either. They were going after the customers of those companies, and they just needed a large number of customers to come in. So what they were trying to do was find places that would have a high aggregation of valuable financial data. And that would be places that had large numbers of customer throughput. And so, retail stores and restaurants are basically bars, things like that. That's what you look for, somewhere where there's lots of people coming through throughout the day. Like you wouldn't want to go after, say, like a car dealership, because like there's going to be one purchase or like 3 purchases in a day. Right? It's not going to be very useful. So they weren't going after big people. They wanted large numbers of customers, so smaller, at least for this set of campaigns. They are credited with doing a large number of stuff, including banks, ATMs, like large enterprises. But the attribution is very iffy. I wouldn't trust it completely.
And on the money laundering part, because that's something you didn't cover, do they have like a specific modus operandi, or like what do they usually use? Like
so like they've got money mules, which are basically like they're a service that you can contract from the Russian underground. It's people who have money wired into their account. They keep a percentage and then they send the rest via, say, Western Union or some other method. They send the cash onwards. So I could do that to cash out. And then in terms of the credit card stuff, they were just selling the credit card and debit card data to other criminals, and they would take that cash. So they didn't actually need to do money laundering in the sense that the money that they had was clean, like it had already been processed by the time they got it. It was illegal, but they're in Russia. So, they're not really going to get done by the IRS for failure to pay taxes or anything. That's not a problem that they had to deal with. They were getting money in via cash, wire transfers, probably web money, whatever they were getting from other criminals, crypto stuff as well. Anything that they needed to get cash in, and then they could just disperse cash as salary internally with wire transfers to a bank, and it doesn't need to be processed additionally, because by the time they get it, it's cash money, right? So
although for BEC campaigns, I'm sure you saw a few weeks ago, was it the FBI, whatever, the Department of Justice, when they announced the 6 people from Nigeria that were on the watch list. And at the same time, a week later or so, there is a hush puppy who's quite a well-known Instagrammer who got arrested in Dubai. Dubai police released a pretty fancy video about his arrest. So I mean, very likely it's probably related from the same ring. You don't see 6 + 1 Nigerians being arrested for BEC scams, in 1 month, without any relationship. But I guess same thing with them, the money laundering part is quite interesting. I've been trying to get in touch with some of the people doing those operations, just to have some anonymous interview or whatever. I think that would be quite fun. But they never reply to my emails.
Dear sir or madam, I'm a Nigerian prince. Hello, please, yes. Can I ask you how you fucking launder money from the people who fall for your scam?
They're really good. I investigated a bunch of BC scam from Nigeria. They reply to the emails, or they are they're quite professional. They would be good good PAs, just for the emails. I know there's a bunch of companies that receive some money for.
Well, now everything's remote. They could actually open up a call center.
Yeah,
virtual PA.
Those call centers in India, those support scam stuff, that the guy keeps chasing, and then he's looking at the CCTVs. That would be quite a fun thing to
awesome.
do too.
You could get Nigerian Yahoo boys doing virtual PA stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
imagine if they screw up the email. So yeah. Yes, in relation to the request to rebook your tickets, I want to let you know that you have a unique opportunity to help me move $10 million.
No, but they're pretty good, because actually they do target a lot of Office 365 stuff and everything. But I don't know if they use malware. So I think they just do some spear phishing. Not even regular phishing. Get some emails going. People don't use 2FA. And that's it, and they've been doing quite well. But yeah, another question, I think that's the last question, is for this to be a true Uber of cybercrime, someone needs to create an app that requires the fastest compromise, finds the cybercrime team to take the project, and gives 45% to the app makers.
Yes, that's correct. Once they had their process, they needed to make an app so that anyone could sign up and do it.
And then they can start a marketplace.
And then
everyone can put their own malware.
The first cybercrime unicorn.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was called NSO.
Yeah. No, actually, Fin7 are credited with over $1 billion that they've stolen. So technically, they are a unicorn. So you can learn a lot from cybercrime unicorn.
A unicorn means your valuation is $1 billion, not that you generated $1 billion of profit. So technically,
but see, if you take their revenue and then you project it over, their estimated duration,
it would be like the next Amazon if you want $1 billion of revenue.
Twitter has $2 billion in revenue, so these guys have got to be worth more than that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like what's the F7 ARR? It's a good question actually. Like in terms of numbers, because like those numbers about campaigns are a bit like iffy. You know, it goes in every direction. You know, you don't really know it's computed.
So there's the concrete numbers are 100 victims. That there's someone who had a Jira instance that had 100 active projects. Mm-hmm. However, some people have credited thousands of victims, which I think is that it's attribution expansion. It's bullshit. It's not real. But I think hundreds is accurate. At the same time, I don't think $1 billion in stolen money is accurate, because that's very much like those dodgy numbers, you know, like where the police sees like $3 million worth of marijuana in 2 dime bags. You know, like it's like I don't trust those numbers from external people. Plus, you know, like they're gonna lose. Like that's not even if they had $1 billion in revenue, their profit is going to be much lower because they're going to, you know, lose a lot to money mules. They're going to have to pay out salaries, so they're going to have to pay for infrastructure. They're probably just going to lose some amount. Like you'll send stuff to money mules and they'll just keep it. Some amount won't be able to get wired out. Will get, you know, sent back. All sorts of shit can go wrong. So I'm pretty sure that they did not have $1 billion in profit. But, you know, $1 billion in revenue over 5 years, and you know they've got a good business model. They can keep going, I think. So, like I think their projected growth would be interesting.
So what did you mean about 2025 and the shortage of cyber criminals? Did you mean like cybercrime is going to go down, or cybercrime is going to go up and they're going to need more resources? Or automation is going to replace them and make them redundant?
I was just joking, because like when they have to do capacity building, they have to hire people. And anytime you talk about hiring in cybersecurity, there's always this shit saying, you know, like there's going to be a shortage of 1 million cybersecurity professionals by 2025. You know, Gartner are predicting that, you know, by 2025, there will be a shortfall of skilled cybersecurity people of like some stupid, ridiculous number. So I thought, you know, like if these guys are a business, they're recruiting from a pool.
Yeah.
At some point, you know, someone's going to start predicting that the pool of cyber criminals is not going to be sufficient for all of the roles in cybercrime.
Yeah. I mean, especially phishing emails are still efficient, you know, like, definitely, definitely a lot of interesting prospect for that.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Cool. Well, thanks again. Actually, do you have any recommendation of people who could invite to talk about like corruption or money laundering? I think that could be quite an interesting topic to cover as part of the...
If I knew someone who had enough money that they needed to launder it, I probably would be a lot.
No, that was not my question. That's not the question.
I don't know people who do that.
No. My question was like someone who can talk about it as like, you know, like I don't like academics, you know, like some.
Yeah.
Not how to. That's not what I said.
That kind of criminal, you know. I don't run in those circles. My Rolodex does not have a lot of mob bosses, so no, I don't know. But I think I can talk to someone who can maybe get you like money mules. Like I know some people who do a lot of research on Russian underground.
Yeah,
and
that would be cool.
They might be able to like they can either talk about it or they can maybe get you access to interview someone.
Yeah, that would be cool. Could be interesting.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for joining us again.
And thanks for having me, man.
No worries. Take care.
Cheers. See ya.
Bye.